Good evening, you're watching RTD English News Edition. The major stories. At the interior regions, delegation led by Prime Minister visits the Obok region. A training seminar on credit list has been held at the Institute of Diplomatic Studies. The delegation led by the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed is in the northern regions of the country for a mission of information and meeting with the population. After Tijora, the Prime Minister, accompanied by a strong delegation including members of the government, arrived this morning in Obok region. The inhabitants came in mass, waving the national flag to welcome the Prime Minister on the Independence Square in front of the residents of the prefecture. Popular animations prepared by groups of young boys and girls in grass graves in traditional outfits singing patriotic songs has marked its arrival. The Prime Minister and his delegation were welcomed by the Prefect Hassan Dabele Ahmed, the President of the Council, and the Minister Hassan Kamil, and the parliamentarians as well. The arrival of the Prime Minister will be a highlight to discuss the general situation of the Obok region, which has its own specificity, to breathe new dynamism into development with a high rating between Dumaira and Delay, endowed with maritime wealth to be exploited. Social problems are palpable in the region with the remoteness of the country of the capital, the problems of underdevelopment and youth unemployment. Every year, thousands of migrants fleeing misery and wars in neighboring countries transit through the Obok region to reach the Arab countries. After the popular reception reserved for the delegation led by the Prime Minister this morning in Obok, an extended meeting brought together all the representatives of the Obok civil society. The atmosphere was frank and cordial, and the speakers raised the problems at social, economic and security level. The fourth speaker, the Okal Ali Angado, raised the problem of insecurity of foreign mercenaries who terrorize the population in the Obok region and the incorporation of youth into the army. The prefect of Obok, Mr. Hassan, specified that the list of about 60 young people is posted to the prefecture. Thereafter, Obok's women's representative and the focal point of the UNFT intervened to thank the Prime Minister and the delegation accompanying him for the visit to Obok. Obok civil society representative Omar Hassan intervened to announce that the region is mobilized for the next legislative elections. And in response, the Prime Minister thanked the people of Obok for their very warm welcome to his delegation and himself. He acknowledged that the problem of unemployment is a reality in the region of Obok, but the alternative lies in the promotion of maritime resources as an asset in this region. The state provides facilities for developers who invest in the exploitation of maritime resources. He asked the inhabitants to welcome these investors who could create jobs to address unemployment problems. Parents must make efforts to equip children with civil status documents, he said. Regarding the unemployment graduates in Obok region, he asked to list the list and give it to the prefect, and will seek a concerted solution to take these young people out of unemployment, he said. Projects are underway, such as residuals, water supply and others in coastal areas to develop the primary sectors in the basic development sector. The Prime Minister raised the problem of traffic with the dam. In his response, the Prime Minister clarified that the dam is a priority for himself, and he took witness assistance to find a quick solution for it. Still in the interior regions, during his working mission to Tijora, the Prime Minister and his delegation visited the new village under the constructions named Gadilli Village. A promoter started this great project of construction of luxury villas, a shopping center and a hotel east of White City, not far from the Muslim of Sheikh Mohammed. The Prime Minister and the officials congratulated the young promoter, Mr. Burhan Muhammad Ali Gadile, for the realization of this project, which gives a new face to the White City. all villas sold, new villas are planned to meet the demand. Mr. Burhan thanked the delegation led by the Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Kamil Mohammed, for the visit to Gadile. He also said that this project was born thanks to the support of the President. Dozens of people have found jobs since the start of the construction of site of Gadile village. A training seminar on financial leasing for the financial institutions was held yesterday at the Institute of Diplomatic Studies. The purpose of the seminar was to sensitize and aware the financial institutions of the marketplace on leasing and strengthening their capacities. Leasing is a contractual technique whereby a leasing business acquires at the request of a lease client the ownership of movable property to rent them to the latter for a fixed period and in return for royalties or rents. These financing techniques appeared in the early 1960s. It allows businesses and individuals to invest in property by paying a monthly lump sum payment called royalty. And this training was facilitated by international experts on this technique of financing credit. In the seminar saw the participation of the governor of the central bank, Ahmed Usman, several representatives of the financial institutions. And now in Ethiopia, after handing over the keys of two buses and visiting the capital of Afar region, Samara, the Afar authorities have proposed a tour of the agro-postal perimeter of the Dopte to the Djiboutian delegation led by the Minister of Trade, Hassan Hamad. The delegation went to the agricultural areas of Dopte, past the fields of the canned sugar. They were accompanied by the president of the Afar Regional Assembly, Ambassador Hassan Abdul Qadir, the main organization of the Day of Ethiopian Nations and Nationalities, and the regional agriculture officer, Mrs. Abahini. On this perimeter of an area of hundreds of hectares, the population of the region of Afar of Dopte has started the production of the forage destined to the feeding of the cattle in period of drought. The fodder is treated on site by a machine that makes stakes that spread out and look like pyramids inside the fields. The Djiboutian delegation is very impressed by this production undertaken in our country. And coming back to the news of the country, let's watch this reportage on the Central Laboratory of Buildings and Equipments.
The Central Building and Equipment Laboratory is a public body in charge of controlling the construction activities of buildings, roads, and other civil engineering structures. In the current context, the booming construction of the market, both in terms of real estate and transport infrastructure, and in response to the growing calls for quality control, this laboratory intends to strengthen its mission and capabilities in order to achieve the objective assigned to it. The laboratory is a public entity authorized to control construction materials and supplies imported or manufactured in the country. This laboratory is run by Mr. Soban Said Ismail. He's a civil engineer. The main challenge today, and particularly with the launching of the major building site policy, is that we meet many demands of the construction market, which is constantly evolving. Benefit must be at the quality and reliability level expected by the construction industry and their control of the various infrastructure work which is carried out daily. The teams in the field ensure, among many other things, the respect of several criteria and standards before and during the execution of the work. These standards concern in particular the seismic zones, the construction with the seismic standards, and the quality of the soil. The lab goes along with these customers throughout the life cycle of construction, from the design to the completion through the rehabilitation. The laboratory intervenes, among other things, in the field of the foundation studies, the quality controls of materials, road, geotechnical studies. The lab goes along with these customers throughout the life cycle of construction, from the design to the completion through the rehabilitation. The laboratory intervenes, among other things, in the field of the foundation studies, the quality controls of materials, road, geotechnical studies. Since the renewal of these missions, the laboratory has established itself as a true partner of the public authorities and professional in the building and public work sector, and has been able to go along with the contractors and the entrepreneurs in the realization of their projects. Because of its status as a national reference, the laboratory, and to always be at the highest level in the quality of service rendered, the laboratory has itself set the goal of investing in this equipment and the training of its agents. Moreover, it should be pointed out that in the framework of the Doing Business 2018 report, the lab has contributed to improve Djibouti rate by lowering the cost of concrete analysis noted by the experts sent by the World Bank. Indeed, at the initiative of the head of state and following the instruction of the Minister of Transport and Equipment, the lab has set up a specific price grid for households from neighborhoods that are considering hard construction. This facility has enabled several households to recover the service of the laboratory to comply with the rule in force and comply with seismic standards.
The famous African adventurer Kingsley Holgate left South Africa last week with his son Ross and their team in a specially arranged Land Rover convoy to trace the roads on the edge of the African landscape. This South African spar of his adventure in the Horn of Africa arrived in Djibouti. Kingsley Holgate visited the Raleigh terminal for container. At the end of their visit, they took a family picture. Holgate founded the Kingsley Holgate Foundation, which aims to save and improve lives through adventure, through humanitarian expeditions that make a difference. This has been the center of his most recent expeditions, such as the Africa Rainbow Expedition. In this expedition, this adventurer sets off to meet the regions of the vast African continent. I feel blessed to be born under the African skies with my family and fellow adventurers, to have the privilege of living the life of modern adventurers, and with your support to continue using these adventures to improve and save lives, he said. And after their visit of the poor, the adventurers went to the municipality of Belbela for a distribution of kits for children, equipment including eyeglasses, to an association in the municipality of Belbela. Present were the president of the municipality of Belbela and the various representatives of the commune and the senior officials of the terminal container port of Raleigh. This goal has been implemented through programs such as the One Net, One Life campaign, which aims to distribute thousands of mosquito nets to help prevent malaria simply and at a lower cost. And this Right to Sight campaign provides eyeglasses to help the visually impaired, allowing them to resume simple tasks such as sewing, reading, to help them contribute in their community, and aims to provide educational resources and mobile libraries through remote communities to enable them to educate and improve their literacy levels. Kingsley Holgate came to Djibouti in November 2011 during his tour in the Rift Valley for this same mission. And now moving on to news outside of the country. Is appeared in public for the first time since the military takeover in Zimbabwe. He resisted attempt to oust him as the country's leader. The president spoke at the graduation ceremony in Harare amid political turmoil, the likely end of his 37-year-old rule, and the 93-year-old has insisted he remains in charge, but looks almost certain to be forced from office, and he refused to step down with his rulings and with parties, and there is no going back in Zimbabwe. Senior party figures were set to meet on Friday to draft a resolution to dismiss Mugabe and lay the ground for his impeachment if he refuses to step down. The U.S. embassy in Liberia on Thursday expressed confidence in the integrity of first-round voting in the country's presidential election, urging political leaders to allow a timely conclusion of the vote in Liberia. A second round of voting to choose a successor to President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was suspended indefinitely by the Supreme Court on October 31, pending the resolution of a fraud complaint lodged with the Electoral Commission. Ex-footballer George Weah was supposed to face Vice President Joseph Boakai in a runoff on November 7. Weah won 38.4% to Boakai's 28.8% in the first round of voting on October 10. The runoff was triggered after no single candidate obtained more than 50% in the election, which was described as free and fair by international and domestic observers, despite some reported delays. The Liberty Party candidate Charles, who came in third, claimed that ballot stuffing and false voters' registration cards marred the election, allegations backed up by Bokeh. The statement came a day after the European Union delegation to Liberia urged Liberian political parties and the country's electoral commission to end unnecessary delays and elect a new president. And that's all for tonight's news. Thank you for joining us on our today. Have a good night.